Hello, YouTube. My name is Alan, and it's that time once again. Let's talk metal. Tonight, we'll be doing a dive into another new wave of British heavy metal band that didn't have a particularly long or deep catalog, but made some really fantastic music on the few releases that came out. The band that we're focusing on tonight is Bitches Sin, which the name right away tells you this band was not screwing around very much. Pretty hard-nosed name for a band, even by today's standards. Uh, Bitches Sin always revolved around a pair of brothers, Ian and Pete Tooney, who both played guitar in the band. The other members of the band were negotiable, and they went through a lot of lineup changes over the years. While Bitches Sin didn't release a lot of music back during their run in the 1980s, there have been several collections and anthologies put out over the years. The Tooney brothers also made a lot of music available for free download on their website. And this was years and years ago, but it does mean that untangling the catalog can be a little bit of a squirrel's nest because there are demos here and there that are hard to track down. And these different collections tend to have different combinations of things. So you'll get some overlap between different anthologies where they might, you'll have two that might have the same demo, but then they each feature some other random tracks that don't overlap. So yeah, it can be a little confusing trying to sort it out. I'll do my best to work through the discography of the band as I know it and point some things out along the way, and of course play some clips so you can hear what Bitches Sin actually sounds like. So, band got its start in 1980. They were originally a four-piece, and they released a demo called 12 Pounds and No Kinks, which they infamously got that name from a classified ad in a, I guess London area newspaper. May not have been London, but somewhere in the UK, where a lady was offering services. I guess 12 pounds was the going rate back then, and she wanted to make sure upfront we understood no kinky stuff. The demo is okay. It has a couple of songs that you can tell show potential. Some of them are a little bit rickety. A few of these songs, would not go on and get a ton of play later. So, it's a demo. The band is at the demo stage in 1980. It's an okay start. In 1981, they would release their next demo called Your Place or Mine. By this time, they had added a fifth member, so the lineup was the Tooney brothers, Hodder, Knowles, and Cockburn, just given last names here. And this is where the band really starts to come together. The five-man lineup suits them better, sounds a little more powerful, a little more forceful. Some of the songs they had been working on are coming along nicely. And in 1981, they would finally get a chance to lay some stuff down on vinyl. They recorded a single for Neat Records. It has this image on the picture sleeve, essentially. Now, this is just an anthology collection from years later. I don't have the actual 7-inch single, but it pairs a new tune, Always Ready, with a track they had been demoing called Sign of the Times. And so let's check those two out for our first idea of what the band sounded like. As usual, I may skip ahead a little bit if the song has a long intro, but here is Always Ready from the Bitches in 7-inch, 1981. All right, so I like the verses in the song. They've got, kind of a hard riff to it. Sounds pretty good. The chorus is kind of an issue, though. The chorus to me has always sounded a little too poppy, a little too saccharine. It's like they kind of reined the song in at the last minute. So it's a little bit of a Jekyll and Hyde affair with Always Ready. Let's see what the flip side sounds like. This is Sign of the Times. All right, so yeah, a very speedy number. Both of these songs are relatively short. It's a pretty short single. But yeah, that one shows Bitches Sin working in a little more energetic fashion, which is where they tend to really excel. Those tracks tend to be their strong suit. So yeah, the single's a little uneven. It's one I've never tracked down myself. Urban legend has always said that some copies were made on yellow vinyl, which is possible. Neat did press some other things on yellow vinyl around that time, but no one seems to be able to find a picture or a copy of it. And the band has said they were never aware of colored vinyl copies, so it may just be one of those random things like um, that people got wrong over the years, like claiming Crucifixion's Green Eyes EP came on green vinyl, which doesn't appear like it ever really did. But yeah, so the band, gets some exposure through Neat Records. Neat did not pick them up for any kind of release, though. The band also got a chance to do a BBC recording session in '81. These were a big deal for new wave of British heavy metal bands. They got to go into the BBC studio, record a handful of songs, kind of a quick rushed affair, but still cool to do it. And then you'd get 4 tracks played, live on the air, tied in with like, the Friday rock show. Same lineup from the single went in and did this recording session. I believe it's in August of '81. And for this session, they absolutely nail it. The story from the Tooney Brothers has always been that the recording session, the studio was just blazing hot. They had to basically, take off their shirts. They were stripped down, just sweating buckets. But they recorded a killer live session, very high energy. And we'll play a clip from the track Down the Road here that shows kind of, the absolute speed they were operating at on the BBC session. So here you go with Down the Road. All right, yeah, absolute screamer version of that track. They again had demoed that track before, or it's played maybe a slower pacing. But whether it was the temperature in the studio caused them to speed up, or deciding they were just going to go a little over the top and really go for it since they had a chance to be on BBC, yeah, that version absolutely smokes. It's one of the real highlights from the early new wave of British heavy metal, in my opinion. The whole session is quite good. It's included on a lot of things. This particular anthology has the 12 Pounds and No Kinks demo and the BBC session. Doesn't have the single on it, though. Played that from a different source a moment ago. So yeah, the band's doing pretty well. They also get a chance to be featured on the Heavy Metal Heroes compilation over on Heavy Metal Records around this time. So this is the first pressing of that. The first pressing is like a real simple, the cover is really just an insert. Later pressings would have a proper cover. But yeah, on this one, Bitches Sin does another one of their really early standout tracks with Strangers on the Shore. Fantastic tune. And then Heavy Metal Records decides to, pick them up for an album. So yeah, the band's moving from strength to strength here. In 1982, they have a revamped lineup by this time. The Tooney Brothers have always said in kind of a self-deprecating manner that they were kind of hard to work with. So yeah, by the time the album comes out on heavy metal, it's the Tooney Brothers, Oram, Bidscombe, and Tompkinson. So the entire rest of the band from the BBC session has rotated out by this point. But they do get to release an album called Predator. Um, Pretty iconic cover art, looks really good, cool image. At least some pressings of this came with like a textured cover, just as, another little fancy bit, which is noteworthy because heavy metal records, a lot of their early releases were pretty budget. They include, some typos and issues like on the early picture sleeves are pretty minimal. So the fact, that they're springing for some cool art and putting a textured cover on it, tells you they thought this was something to invest in. The artist, if the style looks familiar, his name's Rodney Malthus, and he did art for a lot of other bands, Tigers of Pantang, Diamond Head. In more recent times, he's done the cover art for Russell Allen and Jorn Land's side project, Allen Land. So you can always kind of tell he's got, the kind of cool sci-fi thing that, has a little bit of like that, kind of 70s art style vibe to it, but it always looks really, really cool. So yeah, the band's been quickly gaining momentum. They've got the album, the packaging's awesome. What could go wrong? Let's listen to the lead track from Predator and just revel in its awesomeness. The title for this track is April Fool. Here's the clip. Houston, we already have a problem, but let's keep going. That is not going to get any better, so we're just going to stop right there. You're a new wave of British heavy metal band. Yeah, you've been sort of building up your repertoire with some real barn burners. You get a chance to put out a full-length album, something that a lot of bands from that era would have killed for the chance to do. And you open it with a raunchy barroom blues number that shows your inner ZZ Top fanboydom. I don't know. Is that even, yeah, is that a thing? Is this just an insult to ZZ Top? I don't know. I'm not real familiar with their early stuff, but what the hell just happened? And I wish it was a one-off fluke on the album. It is not a one-off fluke on the album. The first side of this record is a train wreck for the band. The album famously got absolutely drubbed in the music press at the day. And back then, there were only two or three music papers in the UK that were going to review this kind of thing. If you got a horrible review from one of the main critics, you're kind of screwed. And yeah, this album was just absolutely torpedoed. But they kind of shot themselves in the foot. Side A of this, there's one track on here. I think it's Lady Lies, maybe Runaway. That's not bad, but the rest of this A side is just all over the place. These songs do not sound good. There's just none of that fire and passion that you were getting, just like a year, 18 months before this. Now, to be fair, the album does redeem itself a bit on side two. Fallen Star is okay. You get a version of Stranger on the Shore. Strangers on the Shore, great song. Um, the other tracks are all right, but they dug such an immense hole for themselves on side A that side B, at best, it maybe gets them like, back up to just ground level where they started. So yeah, the album is, often panned as, one of the really awful disappointments of the new wave of British heavy metal era. It does have its fans. There are some folks that dig it, but it is a hard record to love. I think if they could dumped some of the schlock off the A side and put some better tracks on there, it would probably have gone over okay. But yeah, I mean, you heard what they chose to start this album with. You start your album with that. I mean, it's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll from there, much less headbang. So yeah, this album does them no favors. And something I think that's very telling, even for a band that, tended to recycle a lot of songs on different demos and things here and there. The Predator album only includes two songs from their earlier catalog. So most of this was new material. And none of that new material from Predator ever got used on a later Bitches Sin item. That right there tells you even the band didn't seem to have a lot of confidence maybe in this material. They realized that they just had to abandon ship and do something else. And so they did. Uh, in 1983, they started demoing some new material. Let's see. The lineup at this point, you have the Tooney brothers. Knowles is back in the band at this point, but has two new recruits with Fraser and Quagan drafted in. The Out of My Mind demo is basically, again, trying to write course. It's like, okay, we kind of messed up there. That didn't go well. So they're trying out some new material and have some decent songs mixed in. And like I said, none of the older tracks get reworked here. Predator really is a dividing line in their discography. You have this set of songs that they used for singles and BBC sessions and demos before Predator. Then you have Predator with a pretty unique track list. And then you have the post Predator material. And there's very few songs that cross that line back and forth. But yeah, Out of My Mind is not a bad demo. It's just like, okay, maybe they have things on track. Maybe you can blame it on those couple of new guys who only appeared on Predator. I don't know what happened. There's another demo listed from 1983 called State of the Art. This one I've had trouble finding much about. It lists 5 songs, and a couple of these have shown up on some of the different collections. I've never been able to track down like a full copy of the State of the Art demo session. The tracks I've heard are not bad. Some of them are a little bit different. But yeah, for some reason, this is one where it seems to be like a given anthology will have like one, maybe two of the tracks from that session. If there's a collection out there that has the whole thing that I've just missed, please leave a comment below and let me know. It would be interesting to hear all those songs together in one place. So yeah, 83 is spent demoing, kind of trying to get things going. And they do get a chance to record an EP in 1983, which is somewhat ironically called No More Chances. This is not on the heavy metal label, by the way. Don't think heavy metal was too pleased with the reception on Predator, so there was no more material to be released through that label. No More Chances as an EP is pretty good. I do not have a copy of it here to show. It's a 12-inch EP. The picture sleeve's black and white. It has like a big atomic cloud on it. It's a pretty standard looking sleeve. But yeah, it shows the band, working on some new material that's coming along okay. At this point, let's see. You still have now this one, yeah, you have the Knowles, Fraser, and Quagan lineup. And let's see, the tracks. No More Chances, pretty good, one of their newer numbers. Overnight is okay. This had been demoed on the Out of My Mind demo earlier in the year. And then you also have Ice Angels, which is one of the only pre-Predator songs that makes it into the later part of the band's catalog. Ice Angels is okay. Some versions are better than others. It, to the band, it must have felt like their signature sound. Their signature song, because they really did keep using it all the way through their career. All right, so yeah, the EP is certainly not bad, and but apparently it didn't do enough to win back the fan base after the Predator disaster, because the band wouldn't do anything else for a few years. The Janney brothers also, eventually started working on a different side project, but they did get a chance as late as 1986 to put together an album. Uh, so they got another chance to do an LP, but it was for an American label, interestingly enough. By 86, the new wave of British heavy metal party is pretty much over. Um, People hadn't completely abandoned the hall yet, but folks were sweeping up the floor and putting the tables and chairs up against the wall. So very, very late in the game. Very odd that an American label, King Classic, gave Bitches in a chance to put together an album, but the band decided to go for it. And the album they put together is called Invaders. Uh, eh, Invaders has an interesting history. The cover, now, boy, I bet they were jonesing for the days of the Predator cover art here. Obviously, kind of, inspired by, Munch's The Scream painting. You have, I guess, some weird villainy characters. There's sort of a Jack the Ripper thing and maybe some kind of octopus monster. I'm not sure what's going on back here. But yeah, it feels late for a band to be doing stuff. But the Invaders album is actually quite good. I like it quite a bit. It's got a pretty good reputation among the relatively few people who are familiar with it. To give you an idea of what the band was sounding like around this time, we'll check out one of the songs from Invaders called Ain't Life a Bitch.
Little girl gives you a smile, going for the kill. That little girl got someone else, you might as well stand still. And wait, ain't life a bitch? Ain't life a bitch? You see.
All right, now that ain't half bad. That's pretty damn good. And you can tell that, yes, a few years have gone by. It's got, a different, kind of production to it, but it still has the bitches and sound, kind of rumbly undercurrent, keeping things moving pretty quick. Some little screaming guitar parts here and there, wherever the tunies could tuck them in. Great song. This particular song was also featured on an obscure compilation called 12 Commandments in Metal. I think it's one of the earlier items released on Roadrunner Records. It's got a decent track list to it. And it was also reportedly the first song the brothers wrote after the Predator fallout began, where they realized that this is not going well and this horrible review in the press is absolutely killing us. Well, hell, ain't life a bitch? And so they said, playing it, for the first time was kind of cathartic. It's like, well, okay, we just kind of got to soldier on. But yeah, with the Invaders album, it's a a reasonably varied set of tunes. There's some that are a little slower, a little more melodic, some that are catchy, some faster and aggressive. Again, it's a King Classic release from '86, and the production's not top notch. It got very little distribution. It had no distribution in the UK, so yeah, the band couldn't get the album released in their own home territory even. And again, after this point, the Tooney brothers are working on other projects and stuff, and that's almost the end of Bitches Sin. But the album would get a second life years later. In 1989, a British label called GI Records, like GI Joe, but just GI, they ended up wanting to release the album in the UK finally, 3 years after the fact. Took a little while. Um, but this got complicated because it turned out that King Classic had licensed the cassette release to a different American label, and in transit, the master tapes had been completely lost. They could not be recovered. And so, to get the album released through GI Records in the UK, the Toonies essentially had to go back into the studio and re record the album from scratch, which you can probably imagine they weren't that keen on. And again, at this point, the album even ends up with a different lineup. The 1986 US version of Invaders features the Toonies, Bidscombe, Fraser, and Keegan. The 1989 UK version features the Tooney brothers, Fraser, Keegan, and Smith. So it's not even the same group of people playing stuff here. And so again, it's not just that they had to go in and tweak the masters, they couldn't because they didn't have the masters. Um, so yeah, they end up releasing it with a different cover, which um, Angry Space Baby? I've never been really sure what's happening here. It's I don't think it's any worse than the original cover, but it also isn't any better. Yeah, that's a thing. So they not only had to, re-record it, give it a new cover art, have a different lineup, the track list is also noticeably different. Because, as the Toonie said, by this point, several years had gone by, they were playing different kinds of material in other projects, and it felt a little strange to just roll out the set list from 3 years ago. So here's how the track lists break down. Both versions start with Ain't Life a Bitch. Then the US version includes Invaders and Bitch's Sin. Neither of those songs makes it onto the UK version of the album. Then, continuing with the track list on the US pressing, you have No More Chances, which is on both. You have Day In, Day Out, which is kind of a ballady song, but actually quite good, and it's on both pressings. Out of My Mind is on both versions. Then you have another track unique to the US pressing called Heavy Life. Then that old chestnut Ice Angels is rolled out once again. It still sounds fair in here. And then it wraps up with a track called Roundabout. Oh, sorry, it doesn't wrap up. Not quite at the end. Roundabout and Ice Angels are both on the US and UK pressings. And then the US LP ends with a track called Dawn of Destruction that is not on the British press. But wait, there's more. You remember that cassette licensing deal where the master tapes got lost? The cassette version ended up with a bonus track called Guilty as Hell. And that is unique only to the US cassette version of Invaders. All right, so what then do you get on the British version that came out in 89? Well, again, you get Ain't Life a Bitch. Then you get three new tracks that were not anywhere else in Bitch's Sins catalog. These are called Destroyer, Alligator, and The Cry. Um, to be honest, these three don't do as much for me. I used to think these two versions were actually kind of equal in how good they were. Eh, Revisiting them for this video, it feels like these three tracks kind of feel out of place. You can tell they're from a different vintage, and as such, they don't quite feel like the right fit here. So I would say the US version is the better version of the album at this point. So yeah, you get those three unique tracks. And then, like I said, it also contains Day In, Day Out, Out of My Mind, No More Chances, Roundabout, and Ice Angels, all of which were on the US pressing. So the UK version ends up being one song shorter than the US version of the album was as well. Uh, so that would then be the last swan song for Bitches Sin. They did get Invaders out in both territories. There is a CD version where you can get both versions of the album as like a 2-disc set. And that's what I've been waving the booklet around from here. So yes, this is called, let's see, Ultimate Invaders. It's on something called Metal Nation Records. It's nice. It does include, the full track lists for both. It does include the Guilty as Hell cassette bonus track. There are a few little problems with this, though. There are some errors in the track listings on the back. One song is left off the track listing, so you got to work that out. Another little thing that it's annoying. You might say it's a little quibble, but it's something that should not happen. You're doing this Ultimate Invaders. You're showing both versions of the record as the US version's on disc one, the UK version's on disc two. For some reason, disc one, the US version, has the artwork from the UK version on the disc. And disc 2, which includes the British version of the album, has the American King Classic artwork on the disc. Quality control. It's called quality control. You don't do that. You know, I don't know anything about Metal Nation. It's a cool product. I'm glad they put it out. But come on, you gotta get the disc artworks to line up with the versions of the album. Having them, vice versa like that just makes it all the more confusing. And it's already kind of confusing after I just went through the track lists. But nevertheless, if you want both versions in one place, this CD I don't think is particularly expensive. I don't know how hard it is to find, but it doesn't command any premium price, and it will get you both versions of the album in one place. And so there you have it, bitches. And yeah, one of those bands that didn't quite make it. It's interesting that even late into the 80s, they still sounded quite good. They were evolving into a more, what we might consider sort of early power metal kind of band, moving away from the new wave of British heavy metal sound. It reminds me a bit of what Clovenhoof was doing around that time on albums like Dominator and Sultan's Ransom, for example. So yeah, good material throughout their catalog. Predator, you just kind of got to work around, I guess. If you like Predator, it's absolutely cool. Again, the B side is not bad. If you could play the B side and skip some of that stuff on side one, you'll be in okay shape even with Predator. But again, you can also find a lot of the material in different anthologies and collections. Just check the track list carefully. If you want certain material, check and make sure it's going to be on there. If you're downloading stuff from online, obviously sound quality can be an issue. I've got an old version of the BBC session from online that sounds very thin and hollow. But then when you get it on like the Essential Sins or the First Temptation collection, the sound quality is fantastic. It sounds great. So be mindful, think about what you're buying, pay attention to which version of Invaders you order because they are different, stuff like that. But it also makes it kind of a fun catalog to dig through because there is a lot of good music here and there. It was just scattered out over different original sources, and now it's kind of scattered out a little bit on different collections. Maybe someday we can get like the ultimate 3 or 4 disc set and get all the bitches and material into one place in a nice chronological package. That would be kind of cool, but that's just my opinion. What do you think? Well, now's the time to tell me because let's talk metal in the comments down below. Fans of the band, are you someone who really digs Predator? If so, make your case in the comments down below. Again, I know the album does have its fans, but I think it's a very tough one to love. What do you think of some of the other eras of the band? Do you like the earlier stuff better? Do you like the Invasion material better? Interesting band to dig through. Cool new wave of British heavy metal act. And that's all I've got to say about that for now. But I look forward to hearing what you say in the comments below. With that, we're going to wrap this video up. So until next time, everybody take care, and as always, keep banging your head.